Petrol prices are climbing higher again amid global oil shocks and the Iran war, pushing weekly fills well past $100 for small cars and $200 for family haulers, while Australians are flooding Google searches for affordable electric vehicles in record numbers. At the same time, China is introducing tough new safety and efficiency rules that will force design changes on the very brands dominating our market. This is Plugged In Australia. G'day and welcome back to Plugged In Australia, episode 35 on today, March 23rd, 2026. And the EV news cycle is packed with regulatory shifts from China that will directly affect the cars Australians buy. Fresh budget models landing, local councils and fleets going electric, battery breakthroughs and performance upgrades, all tailored for our roads and conditions. These stories and more. Let's get into it. China is set to ban a number of modern car innovations in a move that will have global ramifications for all brands, especially brands like Tesla. And the changes are likely to carry weight globally as car makers wishing to maintain access to the world's largest EV market will have little choice but to adapt their global design language. A shift that will inevitably reshape the Australian market, where Chinese-built cars rose 31% in 2025 to 252,702 vehicles, accounting for roughly 1 in every 5 new cars sold. That's according to the combined Federal Chamber of Automotive Industry and Electric Vehicle Council data. Since the start of 2026, Chinese regulators have moved to close loopholes around 3 high-profile EV features, including flush or pop-out door handles that have been linked to fatal incidents in which people were reportedly trapped in vehicles after power failures. The new rules formulated by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology specify that vehicle doors must have hand-operated mechanical releases on both the inside and outside. So not a lot of these vehicles, especially the Teslas, have them on the inside, but not necessarily on the outside. With interior handles easily identifiable, and the standards are due to take effect in 2027, with a grace period for existing models running through 2028. The regulations also target the industry's growing reliance on touchscreen-only controls by requiring physical buttons with a minimum surface area of 10 by 10 millimeters for indicators, hazard lights, gear selection, and emergency calling so drivers can act without taking their eyes off the road. The proposal is still open for public consultation, but is expected to apply to newly built vehicles from July 1, 2027, with manufacturers given until 2028 to comply. In addition, China is taking the stance to ban yoke steering wheels outright due to their lack of hand support during high-speed emergency maneuvers and the projectile risk where fractured metal or plastic shards could be launched at the driver when the airbag is triggered. Yoke steering wheels are set to be banned when the new rules take effect in 2027. However, new models that have already obtained the ministry's approval can still be produced and sold in a transition period that ends before 2028. Separate rules effective from July 2026 require that the battery pack must not catch fire or explode for at least 2 hours after a crash, while from January 26, a new energy consumption cap of 15.1 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers applies to vehicles weighing around 2 tons, effectively adding around 7% more range without increasing battery size. Vehicle monitoring systems must also be in place by 2027 to detect faults early. These changes will force design adjustments on popular Australian models from brands such as BYD, GWM, MG, and Zeekr, including the Zeekr 7X that currently uses flush handles. And while the rules improve overall safety, they could raise costs or limit some futuristic styling features for vehicles already on sale or arriving here in the coming months. As we reported earlier in episode 33, MG Motor Australia has now officially confirmed the launch, timing and full local specifications for the MG4 Urban battery electric hatch, with customer deliveries commencing in April of 2026 as the brand's new entry-level EV priced from around $29,990 before on roads. The compact 5-door hatch measures 4,395mm long on a wheelbase that delivers impressive rear legroom of 905mm and generous shoulder room, with a practical 382-litre boot that expands significantly when the 60-40 split folding rear seats are lowered, a 22-litre frunk, and curb weights ranging from 1.64 to 1.755 tonne depending on grade. It rides on 17-inch alloy wheels as standard and is offered in two battery options, a 43 kWh standard range LFP pack paired with a single 110 kilowatt front drive electric motor and producing around 250 newton meters of torque, and that is projected to give you a 323 kilometers of WLTP range. And then we have a 54 kilowatt hour extended range pack with 118 kilowatt motor for up to 415 kilometers WLTP. DC fast charging at 150 kilowatts adds 10 to 80% in 30 minutes, and while 11 kilowatt AC charging is standard for a full charge from empty in around 5 hours. The MG4 Urban features a 7-inch digital instrument cluster and a 12.8-inch central touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, physical climate and volume controls for easier operation, wireless smartphone charging on the higher grades, and an upgrade to a full 360-degree camera system. Safety equipment is comprehensive across both grades and includes adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, lane keep assist with departure warning, traffic sign recognition, driver monitoring, blind spot monitoring, forward and rear collision warnings, plus rear cross traffic alert, 7 airbags, and MG's full 10-year 200,000 kilometre warranty when serviced within the dealer network. It's front-wheel drive only, unlike the rear-drive standard MG4 currently on sale, and this update expands MG's accessible EV portfolio below the existing MG4, while directly targeting budget-conscious buyers seeking a practical city hatch with strong efficiency, modern driver assist features, and value that match or exceed the BYD Dolphin in range and charging speed, while undercutting the GWM Aura in real-world pricing and running costs. This confirmation gives Australian drivers even more choice in the sub-$35,000 electric hatch segment, where the MG4 Urban now sits as one of the strongest value propositions available. Soaring fuel prices amid global oil shocks and the Iran war have triggered a massive surge in EV interest across Australia, with the RACV reporting a 190% increase in EV fuel type searches on its car match tool between the 28th of Feb and the 11th of March 2026, compared with the previous 2 weeks, and Google search data showing terms for cheap electric cars rising more than 5,000% in the past month alone. Petrol has pushed past $2 a litre in pretty much every locations, with some stations reporting fills exceeding $400 for larger vehicles, and this pain is hitting outer suburbs and regional areas particularly hard, where longer commutes amplify costs. The Electric Vehicle Council's latest ownership survey of more than 1,800 owners shows over 70% of Australian EV drivers achieve fuel cost savings exceeding 60% compared with their previous petrol vehicle, with electricity around 4 times cheaper per kilometre even at peak rates, while 93% of owners can charge at home, with 85% having done so in the previous week and 73% spending less than $300 annually on maintenance. Top models driving the searches include the MG4 and BYD Dolphin, which have tripled and doubled their search volume in the past month, along with the Mazda 6e sedan and Volvo EX30, while the BYD Atto 1 at $23,990 before on roads remains Australia's cheapest EV, and the incoming MG4 Urban, the Geely EX2, the GAC Ion UT, and the JQ J5 all sit in the sub-$40,000 bracket, offering 323 to 415 kilometers WLTP range and full ADAS suites. RACV motoring editor Andrea Matthews said, quote, EV sales now represent 11.8% of the new car market last month, up from 8.4% in January, and for the first time last month, China was the biggest source of new cars in Australia, end quote, highlighting how the evolution in brands and models is delivering unprecedented value for consumers. Experts from the Electric Vehicle Council and Rewiring Australia emphasise that once Australians get behind the wheel, they quickly realise the ease and affordability, with many pairing EVs with rooftop solar for further savings and expecting to keep vehicles for 6 to 10 years or longer. Byron Shire Council has added 5 new electric vehicles to its workforce fleet this year, supported by a $31,000 kickstart grant from the New South Wales Government, making a significant milestone in the Council's long-term plan to phase out petrol-powered fleet vehicles and move towards smarter, cleaner and more efficient operations. Council's Team Leader of Sustainability, Alicia Lloyd, said the purchase is an investment in sustainable, environmentally responsible transport options for the workforce that will deliver real environmental and financial benefits, and the Council recently completed a comprehensive fleet transition study working with specialist consultants to assess energy demand, vehicle suitability, charging capacity, and overall economic feasibility, finding that small to medium SUVs in the current fleet are well suited to electric alternatives and ready for immediate transition. The modelling shows a positive return on investment for this first stage, with expected savings of up to 14 tonnes of CO2 each year, and 5 EVs plus their associated charging infrastructure have now been purchased with chargers installed at the Mullumbimby Administration Building and the Byron Depot to support day-to-day operations. Looking ahead, the first step lays the groundwork for broader fleet electrification, with the goal to continue the light vehicle fleet transition to electric at each replacement cycle, subject to funding and operational requirements. This project joins other local government initiatives across Australia, demonstrating the business case for electrification even in regional areas where longer distance and varied conditions traditionally favoured diesel or petrol vehicles. Great Wall Motor will invest more money into its solid-state battery program over the coming years to better challenge BYD and Chery, with the technology offering the potential to deliver ranges over 1,000 kilometres while improving safety and efficiency, making it very attractive for Australian conditions. GWM Chairman Jack Wei posted on Chinese social media that solid-state batteries face multiple challenges, including cost efficiency, safety and performance, but the company is not giving up on the viability of the technology for commercial output and is pumping more money into the project to make progress on research and development. Wei said GWM solid-state battery developments would take at least 5 more years before being available for commercial use, meaning production-ready units are unlikely before 2030. The brand's battery tech subsidiary S-Volt unveiled a solid-state prototype in 2022 with energy density between 350 and 400 watt-hours per kilogram. And that was using a sulfide-based makeup, and that underwent extensive testing, including rigorous thermal efficiency trials, maintaining stability at 200 degrees Celsius. This positions GWM behind Chery's incoming units that target 600 watt-hours per kilogram, but the investment will ultimately benefit Australian buyers of Haval tank and Aura models by delivering longer range, faster charging, and greater safety once the technology reaches local showrooms. Current interim liquid solid-state batteries, which I think you could probably call semi-solid-state batteries, already achieve 245 watt-hours per kilometre, and push aligns with GWM's aggressive 2026 rollout of up to 10 new or refreshed models, including multiple plug-in hybrids and battery electric vehicles, as the brand targets more than 60,000 annual sales. Renault Australia General Manager Glenn Seely has confirmed the brand has no plans to expand its EV lineup beyond the current 3 models because the Australian market of 1.2 million annual sales with less than 10% electric is simply too small to justify additional investment, and unique Australian design rules, particularly ADR 34-03 on child restraint anchorages, continue to block popular European EVs like the Renault 5 E-Tech. The Renault 5 lacks a top tether anchorage point in the middle rear seating position, even though it is sold as a 5-seater in other markets, and fixing the issue would require redesigning the entire rear bench, with testing to ensure it takes double the force on that single tether point at a compliance cost of approximately €3 million, which is about 4.9 million Australian dollars. The same rule previously affected early BYD Atto 3 and updated Tesla Model 3 deliveries, as well as recently the Deepal EO7, and Renault is unwilling to absorb the cost for a model that would sit in a price segment already crowded with cheaper Chinese options. Sealy said, quote, "We've got Megane E-Tech, Scenic E-Tech and Kangoo E-Tech, and that's 3 models for a small brand where electrification today is sub 10% in the marketplace, so we're well covered," end quote. And added that if electrification reached 40%, the Renault 5 would be a much easier proposition. The same barriers apply to the Renault 4 E-Tech Retro SUV and Twingo City Car, while the Alpine performance brand, including the A290 hot hatch, is also on hold because sales above the luxury car tax threshold for pure EVs are not strong enough to support a launch at this stage. Renault is instead focusing on hybrids such as the upcoming Symbioz small SUV to meet new vehicle efficiency standard requirements while monitoring the market for future EV opportunities. Skoda Australia has launched the new Octavia hybrid and Superb plug-in hybrid to broaden its electrified offering for Australian buyers, with the Octavia Select Hybrid Liftback and Wagon starting from $43,990 drive away nationwide, and the larger Superb plug-in hybrid Wagon priced at $66,990 drive away. The Octavia uses a 1.5-litre turbocharged petrol engine paired with a 48-volt mild hybrid system, producing 110 kilowatts and delivering fuel consumption of 5.1 litres per 100 kilometres for the liftback and 5.2 litres per 100 kilometres for the wagon. While standard equipment includes dual-zone climate control, heated front seats, keyless entry, an electric tailgate, a 10-inch digital instrument display, a 13-inch infotainment system with satellite navigation and wireless smartphone connectivity, USB-C charging and wireless phone charging, plus safety features such as adaptive cruise control, lane assist with adaptive lane guidance, traffic sign recognition, emergency assist, and front cross traffic alert. The Superb plug-in hybrid combines a 1.5-litre turbo petrol engine with an electric motor for a total system output of 150 kilowatts, 350 newton meters of torque from a 25.7 kilowatt-hour battery that enables a WLTP electric driving range of up to 112 kilometers with AC charging at 11 kilowatts, reaching a full charge in around 2.5 hours, and DC fast charging at up to 50 kilowatts, allowing a 10 to 80% in approximately 25 minutes. The Superb plug-in hybrid is offered in the well-equipped Select trim with tri-zone climate control, heated front seats, keyless entry with walkaway unlocking, a power tailgate, a 10-inch digital cockpit and 13-inch infotainment display, wireless smartphone mirroring and charging, plus 19-inch alloy wheels, metallic paint, tinted rear glass and illuminated branding, and safety systems equivalent to the Octavia. Both models are supported by Skoda's 7-year warranty, and the launches provide practical electrified choices that sit alongside Skoda's growing battery electric portfolio for buyers seeking lower running costs and reduced emissions without fully committing to pure BEVs. As I've always said, once you get the plug-in hybrid, if you pretend that it doesn't have the petrol engine, which obviously you can't do, but if you just plug it in all the time, you will find very quickly that you do not need that extra engine and that extra maintenance. Let's continue on. Janus Electric Holdings has released analysis showing Australia's heavy freight fleet of more than 128,000 articulated trucks could be fully electrified within as little as 5 years by converting existing diesel vehicles during their normal 5-year engine replacement cycles rather than replacing entire trucks with new electric models. Chief Executive Ben Hutt said, quote, "Electrifying heavy freight is often assumed to require replacing entire fleets of trucks, which would take decades, and be prohibitively expensive. But what this analysis shows is that if trucks were converted when diesel engines reach their normal replacement cycle, the transition could occur far faster and at significantly lower cost than many people expect, end quote. A typical diesel engine replacement costs around $100,000, while Janus Electric conversion solution is priced at about $175,000, yet remains significantly cheaper than purchasing a new heavy-duty electric truck, which industry data suggests can cost 2 to 2.5 times more than a diesel equivalent. Converted trucks can also deliver up to 30% lower lifetime operating costs, largely driven by the removal of diesel fuel expenses, and the platform allows trucks to exchange depleted batteries for fully charged units in around 4 minutes, offering a faster alternative to conventional plug-in charging and enabling continuous operation across long-haul routes. Australia consumes around 32 billion litres of diesel annually, with heavy freight accounting for roughly 30% of that total, and electrifying the fleet could free up as much as 10 billion litres of diesel per year, materially reducing pressure on national fuel supply that is 80% imported and exposed to geopolitical disruptions. Don't we know it at the moment? The analysis builds on more than 3,500 battery swaps already completed and over 600,000 kilometres travelled by converted vehicles, while targeted policy support, including incentives for fleet operators and public co-investment in battery swap infrastructure along major freight corridors, could accelerate the transition even further. Tesla has ended production of its V3 Supercharger cabinets after 7 years and more than 15,000 units built at Gigafactory New York, and is now focusing exclusively on the next generation V4 cabinets that double the charging speed, up to 500 kilowatts per stall for compatible cars and up to 1.2 megawatts for trucks such as the Tesla Semi. The new V4 cabinets operate at 400 to 1000 volts, supporting 800 volt vehicles from brands including Hyundai, Kia, Porsche and Tesla, which is only on the Cybertruck at the moment, and each cabinet can power up to 8 stalls compared with 4 on previous versions, while reducing complexity, deployment costs and the space required at sites. Tesla Charging confirmed the shift on social media, stating the V4 cabinet line is ramping up and the upgrade will make rolling out new sites much faster, which is critical as the Australian network already exceeds 148 active sites, with more than 80 open to non-Tesla EVs and nearly 20 new locations added since August of last year. The change will benefit Australian drivers on major routes by delivering significantly faster top-up times and lower network costs, helping keep Tesla Superchargers pricing competitive against other high-powered networks that can approach 90 cents per kilowatt hour, while supporting the surge in long-distance travel and fleet charging. And that wraps up this episode 35 of Plugged In Australia. Some big changes coming from China. Those regulatory changes going to make a big impact, I think, on the industry. Everybody's going to have to move, and it just goes to show that if China says jump, pretty much everyone says, well, how high? So as Tesla now focusing on their V4 superchargers, getting those charge rates up and supporting more of the 800 volt architecture cars, which is good, because previously on the V3s with the V3 cabinets, they would just have to cut the packs down to 400 volts. So all those really good charging speeds you have on your car don't mean anything at the V3s. So that should be very good. As always, if you have any questions, any feedback, info@pluggedinaustralia.com.au. And thank you very much for listening. And until the next time, stay plugged in and stay charged. Ci vediamo.